Hi, welcome to the first edition of Meta Breakdown Analysis. So this is going to be a slightly different series. Let me know down in the comment section, do you like this kind of series in general? Because I'm thinking about adding it to my rotation for the YouTube join section. I want to add something that is not necessarily always gameplay, but also informational purposes that could be sweet as a breakdown. So this is more just of a test of that new feature. So I want to know what you guys think about this as a concept. And we're going to start out of the gate with a deck I think is actually pretty reasonable when it comes to the stack from the top of the meta. And we're going to talk about it, break down its analysis of the current, its win rates and stuff like that. And then we're going to discuss how does it actually adjust to close up the matchups that is bad against to make this deck, I think, a hyper tier 1 deck. So, if like I said, let me know all you want to know down in the comment section regarding the series. Do you like it? Do you hate it? This is something brand new. So, like I said, this is something that if you're wanting more of this, this is going to be for YouTube subscribers only. But this one episode will not be. So, let's get into it and let's talk about spirits. So, Azorius Spirits. This is one of the decks on the upper tier 1 or upper tier 2.5, right? So, this is one of those decks I think has definitely been around in the the meta for a very long time. Now, how come I think this deck is actually good right now, even though it has a 49% win rate as a whole? When it comes to previous iterations, it didn't perform necessarily as good in the RC, but I think one of the key factors is its horrible Phoenix matchup. Now, I do think there are some things we could do to address this, just because of the fact that, the control matchup is really good. It's kind of everywhere. It has a reasonable Rakdos Prowess matchup, because we do have stuff in the board in the main, like Portable Holes, and also the new Aura, right? Sheltered by Ghosts, which really helps the deck compete against similar types of strategies. Now, where this deck does struggle against is decks with high burn rate, low mana value removal spells, or burn, in other words. So that's what we're going to discuss. Like, how can we address this one bad matchup? Because besides that, like the rest of the top in the meta, like that you would face on a day in and day out basis, this deck looks like it's pretty solid into it. So, against Phoenix, we are unfavored. Rakdos Prowess for 52%. Control 63%. Incarnation, which is heavily dominant right now, it's 58% win rate against. Mono Black, I'm assuming this is the new one with the mixture of Waste Not, probably in a mixture of the new Slasher combo, where 61% win rate. Rakdos Transmog is 56% win rate, which is pretty good there. That's a deck that's been showing up. Even Jund Sacrifice is a 52% win rate, because we can counter the cat and also the big fat Yeager cat, is what I'm talking about, which could help that matchup. And Rakdos mid-range, we're 56% win rate. So where we start struggling is something against like Green Devotion and even Lotus combo, we are actually 54% win rate. So Fang is 73, that's pretty good. So Gruul Prowess, and then is it 5-color Nim Mizzet? We're getting in the 20%, 30% mid range, but that's also a very small sample size. So I think that if we could address these two particular matchups, as well as the green matchup and the Phoenix matchup, this deck might be a reasonable deck just to take and go and compete at a very high level. And Azorius Spirits is actually a very semi-budget friendly option as well. Plus there is a pre-made deck. If you wanted to get into Pioneer, like literally there is a Challenger deck for Spirits, which is another key reason why I want to cover this deck. Now, I have a list that I wanted to talk about that I think could be a reasonable one into the current meta. But I am curious what you guys think about the current status of Azorius Spirits. So let's get into the list real quick. So to cover up the shortfalls against Phoenix, I like 2 copies of Rest in Peace in the board, 2 High Noon in the board. This really would help also against Green Devotion, where you kind of actively need to reduce the amount of spells they can cast in a turn, because the only way you're going to lose against Green Devotion is if they pseudo combo against you. So as you can see, our win rate against mono green I don't think was really all that bad, right? It was like sub 50% win rate. In this range, it's either 44%, or it's slightly 50 something, or 40s or 50s. I think it's 44%, if I'm not mistaken. So 44%, that's not that much ground to cover. And also the cards that are good against Green Devotion also happen to help you shore up your matchup against Phoenix, which is why, I mean, Rest in Peace does not, right? But High Noon does. So if we get we could probably trim back on the draw package or the Wandering Emperor package and bring in some High Noons, which reduces their ability to cast multiple spells in a given turn. But change the equation also helps in that matchup. So maybe we could shore that 44% win rate up to a 50% win rate, which is where we want to be actively with this deck. Without, I don't think this necessarily is going to decrease your win rate against other matchups, which you're already favored against, right? Because we have a decent matchups against this Control, Incarnation, Mono Black, Rakdos, and all the Jund and black base strategies, which is a heavy portion of the meta just because they have the best interaction with Thoughtseize and Fatal Push. So I do think that is a key factor in this. We also have our Dolphin's Vetoes in additions to the No More Lies, in case we do face something with heavy amounts of interaction. We have the Curiosities to bring in against those grindy matchups, so we can draw extra cards, tempo out our opponent, which is really important, like I said, against the Azorius control matchups and the black base matchups. So I do think this could be a good way of going about it. Normally you see Azorius spirits not necessarily have both Rest in Peace and High Noon. You kind of see them go one or the other, but I'm kind of thinking based on our win rate percentages, maybe we should honestly just shore this up, because a 29% win rate against Phoenix is not that impressive, but 52% win rate against Ragdoll Prowess, which is the second most dominant, most played deck in the format at the time of this recording. And then, of course, Azorius Control also has always been historically a very favored matchup, right? Because Azorius Control, all we do is cut these Sheltered by Ghost. We go up a Dovin's Veto, and then we go up our Curiosities, and that's about it. We could also go up the Evasion of Gomicon, which arguably is pretty reasonable also against black-based strategies. And, of course, against heavy amounts of removal, we still have our Rattle Chains. As long as you can get enough rips in with this deck is pretty reasonable in that regard. It could argue maybe the 4 Innocence is not necessarily where you want to be, but I do like the fact that that's kind of the number. You could also skew another Skyclave Appetizers in the board to show up a little bit other kinds of matchups, but I do think this is a solid list to start from. It's $300 and off Card Kingdom, so it's not like an overly expensive deck. It is kind of weird though, they're starting to play some Deserted Beaches when they're kind of more of a low aggressive style deck, tempo play, so that is a little interesting. So basically, they kind of just cut the Curious Obsession and went up the Innocence, which is kind of nice, and I guess in some regards, because Curious Obsession sometimes tries to make you attack into horrible situations to keep the aura around. Also, you don't get 2 for 1, so that's pretty nice. So like I said, I do think these combinations still give you the cards you need to keep your good matchups good. You might even be able to cut one more card. Honestly, if you really are worried about something like Phoenix, you could honestly go up another High Noon or something, just to get that even closer of a matchup. Because yes, it's 73 matches with 29% win rate. Like I said, we could definitely fine tune this deck to be able to shore up that matchup. Where it is kind of horrible is the fact that they do have heavy amounts of removal, spot removal for 1 red, which historically is what Spirits has kind of struggled against, because I primarily play red base burn, right? I played that for the RC, and that kind of strategy does do quite well against this deck, since they play volleys and stuff like that. They could just burn these low toughness Spirits. As long as you keep them off the board, they could definitely keep going there, like I said. But it gets aggro, like No More Lies gets cut for the portable holes, which really shores up the aggro matchups. Then you even have a Containment Priest if you wanted to bring that in against Sacrifice potentially, and the Rakdos Transmog, which is a very dominant deck. So, like I said, we still have a lot of the pieces in the sideboard to address these matchups that I think are also pretty reasonable. Maybe I should have made a sideboard guide for this deck as well. But then again, I am not necessarily a heavily dominant Spirits player. But I can acknowledge when I could see how to fix the issues that we currently would be experiencing if you're an expert Spirits player, like someone like Tomber, which is a very well-known Spirits player. So, like I said, I looking at these decks to see which deck I wanted to talk about, right? Because I wanted something with a reasonable win rate and has a pretty good, win rate against top meta decks. When I seen, for the most part, this had a very good coverage spread. Yeah, of course, it sucks against these two decks, Scroll Prowess and Nimizit. But they're not necessarily as important. Even against tokens, it's not terrible, which makes sense. It's not really something that you should be worrying about when it comes to this deck. I could have talked about humans a little bit, but humans kind of struggle. That's kind of surprising that it's actually fine against Rakdos Prowess, since it's hyper aggressive. Now, I know red deck wins is the deck that's probably very good into spirits, based off of my actual ability to play the deck. And I've faced the deck in an RCQ top 8, and it was pretty simple to win. But then again, at the time of the RCQ, like, you didn't have Shelter by Ghost, which is a huge addition, right? You can't undersell how important this card actually is. It doesn't necessarily stop running volley per se, but it does give you that lifelink, that little bit of a boost, and War 2 to get through most of the fatal pushes, removals, spells, and stuff like that. And yeah, that's kind of nice. Like I said, I want to know what you guys think about this kind of video. I kind of want to tackle deck by deck, because since in the YouTube thing, you don't necessarily gain access to my articles, which I cover decks and sideboard guides and stuff like that, which is why I posted on the comment section for YouTube. If you're wanting to access both, just let me know. You can do the minimum in both places, and I'll upgrade you to Hatchling or up to Raptor, which Raptor has the ability to make it where you basically give me a list, and I could do a similar video like this. I will take your list, suggest upgrades, talk about your list, sideboard, and how that works, and all that. And also, I could also bring in the concept of this, where I discuss your deck, and when it comes to regards to how it's positioned into the current meta. So that is an option on the table. But yeah, so what do you think about this series? Is this something that you guys would be interested in? Because I could definitely, once I get a certain amount of, the more people that join, the faster I will put these videos out. Because I do want to make sure that this is actually desired and wanted. So like I said, let me know down in the comment section what you guys thought about this kind of content, because I do think this is something that could be pretty interesting, especially since a full breakdown of the Pioneer decks, since I do play the format quite often and I'm at a decent competitive level. So, but until next time, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, hit that bell notification before you head out the door, and have a great rest of your day. Shout out to all my supporters, and if you want to see any other content from me, check out either one of these two videos and playlist, and I'll talk to you soon.